Very rarely am I going to be this insistent on recommending a game to people. The genuine fixation I have with this video game is similar to how I felt while playing Factorio for the first time. The need to play, not the want, but the need. The conviction in this type of recommendation is typically reserved for games that I've had a genuinely memorable experience playing. Your Cyberpunks, Witches, Hades, and soon to be Outer Wilds, probably, when I end up actually finishing it. But I digress. The recommendation of Balatro comes from a place in my heart that I'm rarely able to reach to recommend games to people. This is the kind of recommendation that transcends any bias I have, however impossible that might be. And I don't even want to call Balatro unassuming, because it's not, but from the general look of the gameplay, you could end up judging this deep, addicting, replayable, and authentically challenging book by its visually simplistic cover. We will have arguments about the pronunciation. Balatro, I will go with Balatro. It's a deck builder. Except unlike in other deck builders, here in Balatro, you're managing a 52 card playing deck. And when you draw a hand, you're playing poker hands to rack up enough score to beat the small blind, the big blind, and then the boss blind. This is where I'm sure Local Thunk, the creator of Balatro, will probably lose some people. People who've never played poker before and think that prior knowledge is required to enjoy a poker roguelike. Let me be clear that knowledge of how poker works is categorically not required to both enjoy Balatro and to be good at it. Learning each of the poker hands is like riding a bike, and the only other knowledge you need is the numerical order of the cards, which is very simple. And if you are struggling, then there is an easy-to-access menu with a list of hands, just in case you need a reminder. So, each time the boss blind is defeated, the ante rises, all the way up to ante 8. Once ante 8 is conquered, well, you've won the run. And after that, there's an endless mode to challenge you even more, and that's the basic foundation for a run in Balatro. At first glance, it could seem like that loop won't be super enticing, but you could not be more wrong, my friends. Depth. It's a word often used to describe the well of content on offer in video games, and while that word does apply here, with Balatro containing a litany of jokers, card upgrades, and many more run-changing options, the real depth in Balatro is just how far you can push the game, and just how far you can stretch those in-run options with the sole intent to go as far into the run as you possibly can. Using the aforementioned in-run upgrades, it is your job to create a mathematically dominant deck with everything on offer. You'll start to multiply the chips you're outputting, and then you'll start to multiply the malt, and then the malt that was just multiplied gets multiplied again in a different way with another joker, and maybe the cards help you with their own malt or chip additions, and then the level of the hand played comes into effect to give you that extra boost to score, and all of a sudden you're hitting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of score, and the game has no choice but to kneel down to you. It is the careful and sometimes reckless construction of your entire deck, jokers, vouchers, and more that makes Balatro as challenging and rewarding as it is. When the screen starts shaking and when the chip and malt counter catch fire, those numbers start rising and the sound effects start hitting, I'm telling you, man, the satisfaction you'll feel when it all comes together is unlike any other roguelike I've ever played. The funny thing is I'm not sure how much more I can say about Balatro, because everything I just mentioned is why it's great, and well, I already mentioned it, so I'm going to see if I can be a little bit more specific about just a few things. We'll start with the Buildcraft as well, because I feel like that's an important part of a deck builder, and all the elements that go into how you make that perfect deck. Jokers. These are your relics, essentially. Upgrades that will stick with you until you get rid of them or the run ends. Jokers are the lifeblood of your run and will drastically change your score. The important thing to know about jokers is that order matters. So you've got jokers that will multiply your score, but then you've got jokers that will multiply that number of malt, so this red number. Then you multiply that by a certain factor again, but you want your malt to be as high as possible before you multiply it by that other factor. So ordering your jokers so that happens is the ideal way of doing things. Look, it might sound complicated when I'm rambling it out to you, but it's actually quite simple. Just order it so that you get your malt and then your multiplicative malt. Yeah, and then you're good. Jokers will do much more than just multiply your score, though. Of course, you have situational jokers, jokers that help specific numbers or suits, jokers that are just good options no matter what, and so many more options. But Balatro isn't interested in just giving you a joker and moving on. No, Balatro wants to add layers to them. So jokers, like all playing cards, can become foil, holographic, or polychrome, adding chips, flat malt, and X malt respectively, meaning that a polychrome joker that adds 10 malt essentially becomes a joker that adds 15 malt because of that 1.5x malt multiplier. I am saying malt a lot. I apologize, but it is necessary. As I mentioned, though, the same effects can be added to playing cards, as well as many, many more. Playing cards have a much wider variety of effects that can be added to them than jokers. Playing cards can be augmented in plenty of different ways to satisfy the build you're going for. They can just be straight up upgraded if you want to, or destroy them. Change their suit, honestly, do whatever you want to them. There's a lot of options. Tarot card packs are your best friend in this situation, and they offer a lot of various other effects too, which can quietly and sometimes powerfully augment your run. The combination of your jokers, your cards, and all of their effects are a critical part in your power creep. And speaking of power creep, what else helps it? Well, each hand you can play has a level that can be upgraded. You do this through planet cards that come from celestial packs. These upgrade the chip and malt count of that chosen hand, and to be honest, these are incredibly important, and I probably underrate them, as the amount of chips and malt that they can add can get you out of a jam pretty often. And look, there are plenty of other options during a run to help you be more successful, and as you play through the game, you'll discover the importance of each. Obviously, economy is important. Spectral cards can drastically change your run as well. It's all there for you to discover, and I don't really want to ruin your enjoyment of that discovery. That said, meta progression is a discovery that I will ruin your enjoyment of. Love this format or hate it, Balatro is a game in which cards are earned through completing specific achievements or tasks in runs, and those aren't seeded runs either. Your meta power creep is the addition of new jokers and vouchers to the pool of what's available. And like I said, they must be earned through completion of sometimes specific tasks, sometimes not so specific tasks. Something as simple as reaching a certain point in the run, or something as specific as playing 4-7 of clubs in one hand. I know that some people won't be fond of a system like this, but it's a major part of the challenge and reward, and if I'm being completely honest with you, most of the available unlocks are easily obtainable through just playing the game, or sometimes slightly deviating to unlock the necessary reward. You've also got access to plenty of different decks, all of which will make it easier to get some of the specific challenges completed as well, so it's good from that point of view. From all the standpoints I just mentioned, progression, depth, complexity, visuals, sound effects, challenge, and reward, Balatro is fucking perfect. There is one criticism that is justifiably being levied, but it's hard to define from my perspective. It's in relation to the luck factor in the game, and how hard it can be to get going on some of the harder stakes. Oftentimes I find myself holding R to restart if my initial few rounds didn't go so well, because I know that I just didn't get what I needed to, and that run is probably doomed, right? That's the kind of unfairness we're talking about, but Local Thunk is aware of this and is actively trying to iron out big balance issues while sticking with the RNG factor that makes Balatro so enticing to begin with. This video was made before that balance patch has come out, so expect Balatro to be even more complete when that patch does hit the game. And now we get to the part of the video where usually I'm still talking about the game and its, complexities and whatever else it has in it, but I don't actually have anything else to say. Like, just based off looking at the game, Balatro is simple, right? But then playing the game is a completely different experience, and I'm not sure how to properly articulate the difference in what you see here versus what you feel while you're playing. I've done my best, but just know that there is a reason this game has sold over 1 million copies, sits at overwhelmingly positive, and is one of the most played games on Steam Deck right now. If you somehow weren't aware of Balatro, then here you go. If you were, well, thanks for watching and getting this far. I appreciate it. Hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you later.